what was it like when you first started grinding? I mean, could you keep up or?
Useless, basically. It was always kind of one of those things where the potential was there. I kind of knew it was. I knew I was capable of kind of transferring what I do, but you can't. The body takes time to adapt, and it's probably only really been the last 6 months where I've kind of been able to like move up through the kind of ranks and stuff and start getting the numbers that I thought I should be able to do, which has been pretty cool. But yeah, it's taken quite a while, and yeah, you can't rush these things, I guess.
Yeah.
And you kind of think back to how many rowing strokes you've taken before you actually end up getting anywhere. So it's a similar sort of thing, but I guess the rowing kind of helped, and just the kind of base level fitness. It wasn't too long after Rio, I guess, so I still had a bit in the tank.
Do you ever go on the erg anymore?
Not really. I've done a few, but I end up trying to do the same splits that I used to, which is fine if it's not too intense or it's not too long. So I've done a couple of 12Ks, 16Ks. That's about it.
What was your PB on 2K?
5:49. I think I was down to. But I think in that squad into Rio is probably one of the 8th fastest in the team, probably. I think at that point, which was some pretty strong blokes kicking around.
Yeah.
So
nobody in your team wants to go head to head with you on the erg?
No, I don't think so. No, it has been. I think they want to stand by and watch more than go head to head. There's a few little bets going on. They keep trying to see how much money it would take me to go and do a 2K.
Yeah.
Way too much, I think.
Do you talk to any of the other team? Because I know there's rowers in the other team. I know you mentioned Joe Sullivan and Romani Battisti in Luna Rossa, the Italian silver medalist from London. Do you ever like hang out with these guys, or are you just like? No?
Well, this is the first time we've all been in the same place. Really, first everyone's been kind of at their own little bases doing their training, and there's always a lot of kind of it's very hard to have a conversation with someone from another team about what's going on, because everyone's very secretive about, like, even if your boat's not sailing for a few days because something's gone wrong, they'll always want to know what's going wrong and that sort of thing. It's so yeah, and you end up just so ingrained in your program of just kind of going, the days are quite long, you're there all day, and then you come home, you sleep, and you do the same again. It's kind of got to that part of the cycle now, I guess, where it's just everyone's very focused, and it's quite hard to, I'm sure once we get into racing and there's a few more kind of gatherings and stuff, we'll be able to catch up, and it'd be interesting I think it'd be more interesting after the event just to see how everyone's boats are so different. I think we're in a position at the moment where we seem to be doing a lot more grinding than anyone else. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I think that's a problem for us. It's one of those things that you'll always use the power that you've got available to you. So I think we've kind of overachieved in giving some of our sailing team, the guys at the back of the boat, they've got unlimited power at the moment.
Wow, that's amazing.
But we've got a great squad of guys, and yeah, it'd be nice at some point to have a catch up with the other guys.
What's it like being part of this sort of Team Ineos? Because they're across so many sports, they're kind of like an iconic brand, I guess, or become.
Yeah, it's become pretty big, really, and it's great to have someone like Jim Ratcliffe, who's kind of the backer of the team, who's so into sport, and he's willing to support these things, and he's done a great job with the cycling team and with us as well. He's got a football team as well, which most people don't know about, and he's got a great back end. I think it's one of those things where if you've got kind of takes the pressure off the team having to try and go out and find sponsors and things like that. If you've just got one sponsor who can kind of provide you with, I guess, a lump sum for a period of time, then it means that you can spend more time focusing on kind of developing the boat and getting the right people in the right places, which I think it's been really good here. It's they understand kind of where the problems are, and then they're very quick to get people into specialists and consultants and things to come in, especially when it comes to the technical areas of the boat.
Yeah.
And but then in terms of the sailing team and things, it's good. We've got probably, whereas in a kind of British rowing, you've got so many athletes, and then the specialists are spread quite thinly, kind of your physiologists, your S&C coaches, your doctors and stuff. Whereas here, we've probably got the same setup that we had at British rowing, but there's about 12 athletes. 11 athletes, 15 athletes. So it's great in terms of the support you get, which is that was a bit of an eye opener, really. I think it's a professional sport essentially, and although rowing is very well funded, I think there's still quite a big gap between some of the stuff that goes on, I guess, and the levels of detail that a professional sports team can go to, and the money they can invest in individuals because of that.
Say a bit more about that, Matt. That's really interesting.
I think it's just in terms of this, some of this, they've got so many people coming through the door and so many athletes that, I mean, in this world, the level of detail you can go into individualized training, individualized supplements, nutrition, blood tests, everything is done like that. So everyone has a set list of, for instance, supplements that we can take, which are all diagnosed specifically to your blood tests. So no two people are taking the same supplements, which is quite good.
Wow.
Whereas I know it's quite hard to do in over a squad of kind of 50 people. The resources required to do that are huge, and the money required. But I guess because we're in a smaller team, it's quite easy for us to do that sort of thing. That's just one example. I mean, in terms of just the just the level of, there's no kind of, I mean, you are given a bit more kind of freedom in your training, I guess, but everyone's got other roles rather than just, you're not just a grinder. So you have other parts of the boat that you're looking after as well. So you have a bit more freedom in terms of when you do your training, because you might have meetings that you have to go to, or other people you have to work with in the team. And that's interesting. It's been interesting to see how that works for people and the results they get, as opposed to something so structured as kind of the rowing program, which there's no room for any of that in terms of things. I think I've quite enjoyed it. The just the level of detail that the specialists are willing to go to with individuals is quite good, and I think it's helped me push through quite a lot. I never did any training in rowing with a heart rate monitor on.
You're kidding?
My 4 years in the rowing team, I barely wore. I think I can wore a heart rate monitor for 5 sessions.
Is that like Jurgen was saying? Throw the heart monitors away, boy.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where we did a lot of lactate testing all the time, but essentially the rowing machine was your number. So whatever split you had to do for 16K or whatever, that became your barometer. So you had like a base level. It didn't matter if you were fatigued or not, you still had to do that, which is kind of how you developed, I guess, so quickly. But it's why the program was so brutal, I think. It's because the standard of day-to-day training was so high that you never really had a chance. If you weren't feeling 100%, you still had to be able to go and deliver, which is great in terms of performing on the day. When it came to it, you could always know that you could produce a 2K, whether you'd had 2 hours sleep or whatever. You knew you could do it. But also it meant that if you did awake, you could never really adjust your training that much to suit if you were kind of slowly getting ill. So I think this is why a lot of people struggle with the program so much. And if you look at the numbers that people are doing for steady state 16K UT2 sessions, I mean, the last 15 years, I think it's got pretty silly now. Some of the things that are going on, and it's one of these where you still like Pinson and Redgrave would say probably they wouldn't be doing those sort of numbers when they were training on the ergo. Like, it was very much different sort of. They focused a lot more on the water, I guess. And they could turn it on racing, and they could do high intensity. Intensity was different to your UT2 sessions, and a lot of that's what we do here with the grinding. Is when you do something that's supposed to be, we do 90-minute grinds, for instance, and that's all done way below I did any of my training when I was rowing. It's interesting to learn. I think I've learned quite a lot in terms of that, being able to kind of not have to do. I remember you never did more than you could do anyway, because you just blow up. You learn your body. You kind of learn your body, and you learn what you could and couldn't do. And I think I've been using the heart rate monitor a lot more for that, and just being very strict on myself and being like, well, I'm not going to go above 130 beats a minute, for instance, for 90 minutes, which I've never done in a rowing ever, barely on the water, let alone on. I've never done a session that easy. But if you're doing then, I don't know, 15, 20 hours of that a week, it kind of adds up. and that's been, I think, I've spoken to some of the rowing guys as well when they were in lockdown training from home, saying just try and back off for a few weeks, because you don't get a chance to do that in the program. It's full on. So I think that was quite interesting.
What was it like? You talk about that first year, you had to keep your head down. I mean, it must have been, coming into the team from Loughborough University was like, I guess that's like going into the Sail GP team. You just jump into something. But what was that first year like? What do you mean you had to keep your head down in terms of the program?
I think I remember when you're at university, you think you're training quite hard. I mean, you're fitting in, you go early mornings and you kind of fit around your lectures and stuff, and you may do 2 sessions a day, maybe 3 if you're lucky. And kind of within your own little bubble, you think, oh, yeah, I'm really fit, I'm training really hard. And then you kind of hear about like the program at Caversham, and kind of, it is a bit daunting. But I remember David Tanner took me to one side when we were talking about kind of just after London, when there was a few spaces coming available in the team.
Yeah. And
he said, do you think you're ready to join the senior team? And I basically just done the first ever set of trials. I hadn't been in the system for years. I just done one final trials, and I think I came like 12th or 13th in the pair non-Olympic trial, and just did a load of seat racing in 4s, and the 4 seemed to go all right, and then went to the Europeans that year. And then there's a few spaces. He said, "Oh, do you think you're ready?" And I said, "No." I didn't think I was ready, because you hear kind of the numbers that come out of training and the guys what they're doing. I knew what I was doing and what I was at Loughborough. I was nowhere ready to do that sort of thing. But he kind of said, "Oh, I was one way to find out," and it was a sink or swim kind of moment. I remember coming down and thinking, I'm just going to try and just chip away. So if I only did 1% better than my session the day before, then that was a victory to me. And didn't have to go and win every session. Didn't have to go. I was like just going to keep my head down and just do the program. I don't think I missed a single session in my first year.
That's amazing. That's a great stat.
Yeah, it was just one of those things where I think for the first kind of 3 months, the half hour every Wednesday, I think I went into the team. I think my PB was like 43 or something, 43.7 something when I first joined the team. I didn't have the 5K cut off to get in the team.
Oh really?
And yeah, no, I hadn't hit that. I only broke the 2K target in the October trials, I think.
Wow.
But then I remember doing the half hour every week, and I PB'd every week for about 12 weeks, I think, until I broke 140. Started at 43.7, and then every week I would just come down a little bit until I got to 39.9. I didn't do it again after that, but after that year. But it was one of those things where I just kept chipping away, and you know the program kind of works. I think it was quite easy to be in that environment when you've got guys coming back from London. So you had Mo, Gregors, Hodgie, Pete, Sachi, George came back. Yeah, Jordan Stan came a couple of years later as well. And just being around those guys, you could see what they were doing and the numbers that they were doing. I knew, well, I'm just going to keep my head down and just do what. There's no point in me trying. I knew I can call the same as Mo can for 16K.
Yeah.
What would be the point in trying? So I just stuck to what I knew I could do every day, and it kind of pushed through like that. But it was I remember getting to. I just wanted to just stay in the team really, and I remember going to the first World Cup in Sydney that year, and I was kind of dropped into the 8 as kind of one of the new kids, and then rowing along with all the guys from London, all the medalists, and that was kind of the first real moment. I was like, "Wow, this has got serious pretty quick here." But then it ended up being a spare that year in Korea,
yeah, Chengdu,
yeah. So I was that was a bit hard to take at the time, but I think if I had known that at the start of the year, then I'd have been more than happy. And actually, in hindsight, I remember chatting to the team like Stan and Gregors especially. They were like, "Well, everyone's kind of been a spare at some point," and it was quite a nice way to kind of finish that year, just knowing that I just kept my head above the parapet really, and just plugged away, and just knew that it was the first year of hopefully a few more to come, and it was just about taking every day as it came, and it was good to make it through that first year in one piece, I think, more than anything.
It must have been an amazing program at Loughborough to put you in a position where someone would want to take a punt at you, because I think I've seen somewhere that you're quite proud of the results you achieved with Loughborough at Bucks and that kind of stuff. It must have been a pretty decent program.
There's a series of like very fortunate events, I guess, for me. So I went to Loughborough with the intention of I wanted to start give rowing a go just to keep fit really, but I was always intending to go back sailing essentially. So I just left the British sailing team. So I've done 2 years where I was training with the guys who went to Beijing, and I was kind of trying to go to London, but there was a home Olympics, and there's in sailing as well. One boat goes, and there was that year there was like 6 Brits in the top 10 in the world, and I was very much at the bottom of that pile. So I was kind of thinking I should probably go and get a degree at some point. So that's why I went to uni, and then I thought we used to do fitness tests in the sailing team on rowing machine. And the physiologist said, if you ever stop sailing, you should probably give rowing a go, because you're probably right sort of size and shape for it. So I went to Loughborough with a bit of an intention to get involved, but I was very fortunate that in my first year, so Dan Moore, who's now coach at
the double,
he was a student at the time, and he set up a talent ID scheme within Loughborough. So during kind of the freshers program, I think they ran this thing saying we're going to run like a fast track program for people who are interested. So then it had about 30, 40 applicants, and just after the first few weeks, they ran a 2-week testing block of kind of like running around Hom Pier Pond, a bit of kind of circuit training and things like that, and did all that, and then he selected 10 guys, and they were going to run an 8 for our novice year. So it's kind of his kind of birthday that wanted to run like a high performance talent IDs thing at Loughborough, which was quite interesting, which kind of got me into it. And that's when we kind of got the love for just the day-to-day grind with your mates, really, which was really lucky. We rode an 8 all year. In fact, we spent most of the year on the ergo, I think, because we couldn't row an 8 down out of Loughborough on the saw because it was too small, really. We ended up moving to Nottingham and rode out of. We started out of Nottingham Union, and then basically did the first year with that, and my numbers were right, and then I applied for World Class Start after that first year, and again I didn't hit any of the push or pull scores. I wasn't strong enough for that, but I think they did the assault bike test was all right, and they didn't have many people on the Nottingham start course. They needed a few more, so they said take a punt. There's myself and another guy from our kind of novice intake at Loughborough who got involved there, and that's kind of when I then did more training out of Nottingham Rowing Club because they were based there. So I joined the men's team at Nottingham Rowing Club, and that was probably one of the biggest things that helped me develop. I spent very little time. In terms of a world-class start athlete, I spent very little time in a single. And most of my time rowing in crew boats with the men's team at Nottingham. Yeah. So I think it was quite a good time for that. And that was, it was amazing for me to jump into these guys who were working jobs and then training twice a day, but they've been in it because they loved it. And I think just being in that environment was really good for me to learn to get into boats and try and make them go quick, because you're just jumping around between boats all the time in 4s and 8s, and I love that. And then we had a few guys who had rowed previously, so then at Loughborough who happened to be there, so doing the 23s and stuff, and Johnny Walton was there.
Johnny Walton was there.
He was at the time. I think he'd just been done. He was just going into his 3rd under 23 worlds in the single. He was doing that one, so he was kind of like one of the top 23 scullers in the country, and I moved in. There was housemates in our last year. So in our last year at Loughborough, we were kind of living together and then training down at Nottingham every day. And then I'd be doing the sweep stuff with the Nottingham Rowing Club, and he'd be going out with his coach at the lake, and then basically ended up doing quite a bit of sculling together. And I was kept on going with World Class Start because that was my kind of pathway, I guess, into the team. And then in our last year at Loughborough, we had 8 athletes, I think, who were all on 23 sort of level, all scullers basically. And I think we entered just sculling events and managed to top the medal table, which was pretty cool. So so Johnny did the champ single, and we had 3 of us in intermediate single. It was great. It was just an awesome event that we just kind of came together as a team. And yeah, I remember racing one of the best races. We still talk about it quite a lot with the guys, but we had the champ double final, and I was in double with Johnny, and we were racing against, well, it was UEL, but the University of East Leander at the time, with John Collins and Al Sinclair who were kind of knocking on the door at kind of Leander and in Caversham. And Johnny was he knowed them all from the 23s and stuff, and he won the single the day before, so he was kind of trying to do the treble. Yeah. And I think they were all out to get him a little bit, and we did the heat, and we lost by about, I think they were about 5 seconds down at halfway. I mean, we kind of went through the rep, and I think that was probably one of the single most hardest races of my life, was the rep with Johnny, because he just trying to kind of focus our kind of sprint and our like high rating kind of technique, and trying to get a bit looser. And because I was just trying to bash my way up, of course. So he was trying to coach me from the stroke seat. So I remember going down the rep, and I think we kind of led after about 500 meters, and then he just basically started doing waves and bursts up and down, just trying to get used to that like springy looseness. Yeah. I got to the end, and I was like, Johnny, you can't do that to me ever again. And then we got through to the final, and we this was in 2012, so it's kind of, they were starting to look at I was doing the trials, and alongside obviously the Olympics was going on, and everyone was trying to fight for these places that were kind of coming up in the team. And I remember we had this big head-to-head with Johnny and John in the double. We won by, I think it was 0.07 of a second. It was so close, photo finish. And the lads still talk about that quite a lot. We always hold it over them. Johnny in his backpack, which was me. So yeah, and everyone ended up at Caversham later that year. So it was cool. It was good. And yeah, Loughborough was a very special kind of time for me. So I'd say I got a degree in rowing and did a bit of engineering on the side. Yeah. It was, but no, the facilities there are amazing for athletes. Just if you want to be a high performance athlete in any sport, there's probably not much better places to be. Yeah. Facilities were available. I was very fortunate with the way that the talent ID thing ran at Loughborough, and then getting onto World Class Start, and then the Nottingham stuff was awesome as well. I mean, we won the Y-Falls that year, which is the first time Nottingham had won a Henley.
You weren't in that crew, were you?
Yeah, the Y-Fall 2012 crew. Yeah.
You won the Y-Falls?
Yeah, so I made the final, lost the final in 2011 to London crew with Mark Aldredin, lightweight. They were the lightweight crew in 2011, I think. It was weird with the Y-Falls because for about 6 years or something, the winners had lost the year before, and it kind of rolled back like that for quite a while. So I lost in 2011 and then ended up winning in 2012 there, and then kind of a weird summer kind of took place then, where I was doing kind of seat racing and stuff, and getting thrown into boats with a lot of the guys who had been knocking around for ages, like Scott Dant and Scott Mason, Matt Tarrant, and those guys have been kind of knocking on the door at Caversham for quite a while. And I kind of just rocked up and ended up racing loads of fours with them. Scott's got some quite funny stories of rowing me. I remember this was quite a funny day at four. So we did some racing at Caversham in fours and stuff, and they said they were going to put an 8 out to do some racing against the Olympic 8. It's probably 2 months out from the games, maybe a month out from the games. And they were kind of going through the list of names who were going to be the boat, and I was I'm going in the Matt Gotrel in the 7 And I remember all lads they didn't even know who I was. Sitting around the boat, and they're like, "Oh, hi Matt, nice to meet you." Like, yeah. So anyway, we went rowing in the morning. Went for a paddle. We were doing a session just before the morning paddle before we were going to race the day over a couple of 2Ks, I think. And I kept like getting really struggling on recovery. I kept getting caught with my blade and like nearly catching a crab every time.
Yeah.
And Scott was sat behind me, and he says, "You?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm really struggling." He's like, "Yeah, I've been looking at you. I don't know what's going on." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You should try putting your thumb underneath the handle." So I've basically been rowing for the previous, I don't know, 2 years, one Henley, but I was rowing with my hand like that. So I had my thumb on top of the outside hand. So when I just feathered with the inside hand and my thumb didn't move. And then we went and raced the 8. And I put my hand underneath and did a lap. I was like, bloody hell, that's amazing, Scott.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, he likes to live by that one. I think he brought it out in Rio as well, just before he raced. Like, taught me everything.
Make sure you put your hand underneath.
Yeah, exactly. So that was, no, it was good. It was cool. 2012 was pretty bonkers year for me, really, in terms of I started the year hadn't done any trials. I was injured and just, it just kind of took off really after. The Bucks was the first thing really that kind of got on the radar, and then Henley, and then all the Ford racing, and then into the Europeans. I had a great race at the Europeans in Vrazy. I remember against the Polish 8 who just come back from the games, and that was a great race for us. We had a load of guys in that 8 who then went on to Caversham, and
I remember that.
Yeah, it was cool. We kind of put our hand in the fire a little bit. It was the first kind of real moment of.
You just ran out of beans in the last part of the race, didn't you?
Yeah, we kind of had a semi-push at 500 to go. It looked like it might all come good, and then kind of got rode through by a few people right at the end. But I think the Italians might have rode through us as well, which was hopefully some of those guys might even be here. To be fair, but it was a very cool year. And to top off with and get invited to join the team was pretty cool.